I go, I'll pay you $50,000 if you let us have sex. He goes, okay.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to yet another edition of Becoming the King of Pot. I'm Todd Dankin, and with me, as always, is my infamous criminal cousin, Bruce Perlowin, the King of Pot. Bruce, welcome aboard.
Thank you, Todd. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited about today's episode because I am going to drop a bombshell on the world. Some information that nobody knows.
Exciting. That is exciting. I can't wait to hear that. Before we do, though, if you are watching us for the first time or the 100th time, thank you. And please hit that subscribe button. Please also share it with all your friends and family and have them subscribe too. It helps us on our quest here at Becoming the King of Pot. So, Bruce, you have a bombshell. Are we going to get right into it, or are we going to tease it a little bit?
We're going to tease and lead into it because we're talking about being in prison.
Yes. So you're a couple of years in prison and you're getting into a routine. You're doing your thing. And then you meet the woman of your dreams. Let's tell that story.
Okay, so before I meet the woman of my dreams, I went in Pleasanton. Keep in mind, Pleasanton is a co-ed prison. There's 2/3 women. They have unit 1 and 2 is the women's unit, and unit 3 is the men's unit. You interact during the day, and at night you just go to your own units. My roommate was Joe Chagra, and he was a lawyer.
Well, for those people who don't know who Joe Chagra is, let's tell them who he was.
Okay, so Joe Chagra was the brother of Jimmy Chagra. Jimmy Chagra was one of the biggest marijuana smugglers in U.S. history, the early days, and he was mobbed up and everything, and bringing big loads in from Mexico to start with, and then from Colombia. And there's books about all of us. All right, the two books about me are these two. Ride the Tide and the California, what is this one? The Golden Gate Smuggling Company. There's books about the Chagra family called Dirty Dealings. It's one of the few marijuana books I don't have. If you see this bookshelf here, these are all smuggling books, every one of those. And there's literally a stack of that much, this high. I'm not joking. It's this high on my night table, and I'm reading them all. And I'll show you the the next book about the woman of my dreams. But Joe Chagra from Dirty Dealings. Jimmy Chagra ends up in his big marijuana smuggling case, for his background stories, for those that don't know, hiring Woody Harrelson's father to kill Judge Woods. All right, because he was called Hanging John Woods in Texas, and he gave everybody the maximum sentence. And so he hired Woody Harrelson's father. Woody Harrelson's father goes and does kill Judge Woods. They all get arrested. All right. And Joe used to say to me, one day the truth will come out. I'd say, Joe was a wonderful, wonderful human being.
Let me just say, so Joe is the lawyer that got arrested after Woody Harrelson's dad killed the judge.
Yeah, there was two brothers, and both of them were lawyers. Joe was a lawyer, and Jimmy was a smuggler. Joe was the lawyer, and I forget the other one was a lawyer, but the other lawyer actually got murdered in a robbery. Someone came in to kill him, and for a long time they thought the government hit him, but it wasn't.
So Joe is trying to keep Jimmy out of jail from a marijuana indictment, and then Joe hires Woody's dad.
No, Jimmy does.
Jimmy does. Jimmy hires Woody's dad, and then they all get arrested after the murder.
Including Liz Chagra, which was Jimmy's wife. And Liz, I say Liz because she was in prison with us too at Pleasanton, for delivering the $250,000 to Woody Harrelson's father. That was her overt act.
Got it. Okay, so now we know the players. So Joe is your roommate.
Right. And so one day Joe says to me, Bruce, and I'm in with the women, there's spies, assassins, terrorists, hijackers, jewel thieves, bank robbers. Well, the spy was Svetlana Ogorodnikova, and it was her.
Say that slower. The spy
Svetlana Ogorodnikova.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah. Well, she ended up being my wife, but we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
And so The first FBI agent ever convicted of espionage was Richard Miller. He was an FBI agent, and Svetlana was the Russian spy in that case that recruited him, and it was the largest espionage case of the '80s.
Right. So
So
let's stop there for a second. So Richard Miller, he's an FBI agent who has connected with uh, Svetlana. Who is Svetlana at this point?
the real story?
Well, yeah.
She's lieutenant colonel in the GRU. Now, people call it the KGB, but GRU is military intelligence, and she was. This is all real stuff, all right? Because
Yeah.
again, I married her. I've been with her for 40 years. I mean, she
Yeah.
passed away, a few years ago. But and she was my best friend when she passed away, even though we got divorced. So I know the story inside out, and I've heard it over a 40-year period. It's always been consistent.
And
I
you've
used to
met the
try and
family. They've been to your
I've
house.
met
Right.
the family. I've sent
Right.
boxes of clothing to her family. Uh, you know, huge box every month. Supported she called her little girl, which was like a cousin or something in Russia, who's now went through college, got all A's, and we supported her whole life. But anyways, back to Richard Miller. So, yes, he was, okay, so she's a lieutenant colonel in the GRU. She's what's known as an illegal. An illegal means, like, if you're a spy and you get arrested in America, they deport you. They put you back to the embassy, and you're attached to the embassy, and they deport you. The illegals, if they get arrested, they never admit that they're a spy, and they go to prison. In both cases, Americans over in Russia and Russians here in America. So, and it's a very dangerous job because, you could get life in prison or you could get the death penalty in either country. So, you got to be pretty tough to be illegal. In this case, she's a lieutenant colonel in the GRU. And she ended up being the most watched 60-minute show in the history of 60 Minutes when they
I
aired that
know.
show.
Yeah, that's
And then,
crazy.
yeah, 60 actually 60 it was, easy to remember, 60 million people all over the world watched it, from Russia and from America. And then the best of 60 Minutes for the decade of the '80s, Mike Walsh remembers 25 years of 60 Minutes and 35 years of 60 Minutes. They all aired that segment. So, uh, but back
So
with
explain
Joe. So
again. She's a lieutenant colonel in the GRU, and her mission was to come infiltrate America and get secrets.
her mission was quite varied. Yes. What her main mission was, and I don't think this ever came out in a trial, was, to track down traitors from Russia. So, and I'll
Ah,
tell you a track down traitor story that she told me.
please.
Not yet. We're not there yet. I have to start with Joe
Right,
Chagra.
right. So right. But she was commissioned to, you know, uh, you know, find these traitors. How did she connect with Richard Miller, and how did that all, happen?
In a second, okay? Alright? And I will tell you
I'll
how that
tell you
happened.
that,
Alright.
but not right now.
Right. So, we have to talk about Joe because when talking
Okay.
about Joe goes
Meanwhile,
back.
back at the Joe.
Yeah.
Right.
So when a wonderful, wonderful human being, just as nice a guy as you could ever want. His girlfriend was Carol Amen, and she was convicted of CCE, continuing criminal enterprise. So she was the queen pin. So we called her Queenie. All right. And so one day, uh, Joe. Well, before I get to there, so when I got out of prison, I'm jumping ahead. When I got out of prison, he says, "Go to my lawyers and pick up 2 lighters. One's a gold-plated Dunhill lighter, the other is a diamond-studded Dunhill lighter. One has a J on it for Joe, and one has a P on it for Patsy, and go bring it to my wife, my ex-wife." And, so I go and I pick it up from his lawyer right when I got out of prison, and I ran around for years with these 2 lighters, uh, but they were Joe's, and I wanted to fix them first, because they weren't working, and deliver them. And it would be really cool to hear these lighters are still working, Patsy or Patty. Patsy was his sister, and Patty was his wife, and, she said but I never got around to doing that, and then literally decades go by, and me and Lana, because Lana knew Joe very well, um we said, "We have to give these back to Joe," and we dig them out. We didn't lose them. We kept them in a special place, traveled with us anytime we moved, which was a lot. We brought those, and we gotta get got these shows. 30 years later, 30 years, I finally on Facebook tracked down his daughter and
That's
said, "Look,
funny.
I have these lighters," and I took a picture of
Right.
them. I
Right.
go, "I need to give them to you. I promised Joe." Going back to what Steve said in one of his episodes, we talked about that our word is your bond. You lived or died by your word. I gave my word to Joe. Now, Joe got out of prison years later after he gave me the lighters and he died in a car wreck. I could have kept the lighters, but they're not mine. I gave my word to Joe. I will return these to his wife. So,
Right.
but then I really didn't want to return to his wife. I want to return to the daughter because they got divorced. So, but 30 it was 31 years later that I finally found her Facebook. I got these letters. I took a picture of them. She goes, "Wow, I heard about these letters." It was another 2 years before I finally got back on Facebook because, I forget her daughter, Samantha. "Samantha, where do I send these?" And I actually sent them to her. She received them. She gave them to her mom, because it was her mom.
Yeah.
It's just wonderful to be able to do that. But it shows you that smugglers of our caliber, Steve Kalish and mine, and all the other guys that we've had on this podcast, your word is your bond. You don't lie. You told the truth because we grew up, like we said, if you lied to the Colombians, you got killed. So you
Yeah.
don't lie. Okay.
And even
Anyways.
Kelly had to stop smuggling because he couldn't lie, right?
Yeah, the honest smuggler.
Right.
Alright, so we're in in our room, in our cell. It was ridiculous, Pleasanton, and I said in a good way. You wore our own clothes, you had a key to your room, it was like more of a college campus than a prison.
Yeah.
Very few bars. I don't remember any bars. Maybe in the hole there was bars. We went to movies at
Well, they're just
night.
doors with glass windows, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that's what I'm picturing. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so Joe says to me one day, "The Russian spy is looking for you." I go, "What do you mean the Russian spy is looking for me?" She says, "The Russian spy is looking for you." You know? So, everyone knows who's boyfriend and girlfriend, so somebody told Carol to tell Joe, because they knew that I was Joe's roommate, that the Russian spy is looking for me. And the reason she was looking for me, as covered in a previous episode with Julie McNillis, who was also in prison with me, she was a big smuggler as well, and, they were roommates. Um So Judy's was out to trial at the time, and Lana was calling Judy's sister Nancy, and Nancy was saying, "Oh, Bruce just got into the Pleasanton," because we were all communicating, or at least I was communicating with Nancy. And she's, I grew up with Nancy and Judy,
Right.
and
And
so she
Nancy is
said,
Judy's sister, right?
right. And
Yeah.
Nancy told Lana wouldn't talk to anybody because her lawyer said, "Don't say a word to anyone. Don't talk to
Sure.
anybody because
Right.
they'll rat you out and they'll make up a story and said that you said this, and they'll testify against you." It's a big espionage case. It wasn't
Yeah.
just one FBI agent. We'll get into that later. I So she says, "You can talk to Bruce because Bruce didn't roll over, and he's the one guy that we know that didn't snitch, and he's safe." So that's why she was
Oh,
looking
that's
for
interesting.
me. Yeah,
Ah,
because it
wow.
would be somebody to talk to that she could trust, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like, when she was in county jail one time, someone said to her, "What are you in here for?" And she wouldn't answer her. She goes, "What are you, some kind of snoot or whatever?" "My lawyer said not to talk to anyone." She goes, "Well, fuck you." I goes, "Fuck you." She looks at the dictionary. What does fuck mean? She looks up fuck. She goes, "Well, fuck you back." So she couldn't talk to anyone, so all of a sudden, here's someone you can talk to. Alright, so
Ah,
now she's looking for me, and I
a
go up to her.
trusted confidant.
Right. So I said to Joe, "Well, which one's the Russian spy?" Joe had been there longer than I had, and so he knew who she was. Everybody knew who she was. And he goes, "That one over there." And I go, "Whoa, she's hot." You know? I mean, the beautiful, sexy body, but she walked like military. That's was my impression of her,
Yeah, she
and
was a little tiny thing. Little tiny
yeah,
thing, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
little 5'0", 5'1", and,
Yeah.
so I walk up to her, I say, I say, "Are you looking for me?" And she turns around and says, "Who are you?" Remember, lieutenant in the current, imagine a military person. That's what she
Yeah.
looked like and behaved like, and she was.
Yeah.
She goes, I go,
But
"I'm
angrily, she
Bruce."
responded to you. Angrily,
Very
she's like,
angrily, like,
yeah,
"Who the
yeah,
fuck are you talking to me?"
yeah,
You know?
yeah.
And I
Yeah,
said,
that's how
"I'm
she always used
Bruce."
to greet me when I used to come to your house afterwards,
Really?
after you guys got out. Yeah. Yeah, all the time.
So
She
everybody on this podcast, or most of the people, know her. All right.
Right,
Um,
right.
and so anyway, so because she was a character, she was way larger
She
than
was a
life.
character, yeah, that's for sure.
So I said, "I'm Bruce. You're looking for me." He goes, "Oh, Bruce, you're my we're family." And I didn't. Her English was not good. With this thick Russian accent. So we teamed up together. We became
Yeah.
boyfriend and girlfriend, or what's called walkies. We held hands. And when you hold hands in prison, that means you're a couple. So we choose my walkie, and we'd go up and talk to someone like, let's say, Steve Kalish, and Steve would say something, and she would look at me, and I go, he said, and I would talk to her in broken English that I knew she would understand.
Oh,
And then
funny.
she'd say something, and Steve would look at me. I go, "She said," and I would translate her broken English into English that he could comprehend.
Right.
So it was really
So it's
interesting.
almost like you guys become like a power couple in prison. I mean, you're the king of pot, she's a lieutenant governor, in the GRU. I
Lieutenant
mean,
colonel, lieutenant
or
colonel.
lieutenant colonel, what did I say, general? Lieutenant
Yeah.
colonel, in the GRU. I mean, you guys are, king and queen.
Yeah, we're the king and spy.
Well, yeah,
That's
but I
what
mean
but that's
I mean, was the perception of you guys that, oh, they're royalty because he's that and she's that?
sort of, except there was too many people like us. There's Joe Chagra. There's books about
Right,
half
right.
a dozen
You're all the
people in
same.
there.
Right, I got you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we were
But like,
well
like a
respected.
serial killer who kills 25 people, right, gets more respect than a guy who just kills one guy, right?
Sort of, yeah.
Right. So
Sort of, but not really. Yeah,
okay,
they're looked down on.
okay.
But, we had Gazilda Blanco, the who did put allegedly contracts out on 200 people in Miami from the Cocaine
Right,
Cowboys.
right.
You had Manan Sheila from Rajneeshpuram. She was a high spiritual being. You had Puerto Rican terrorists who were really freedom fighters, but the government called them terrorists. So you had a lot of, high
High
caliber,
profile
high profile.
criminals.
Yeah.
Right, right.
Okay. So here's the
So you were
true
just run of
story.
the mill. Run of the mill.
Not
Right.
really. We're in the the top
Oh,
tier.
okay. All right.
I
Okay.
We got a lot of respect, and nobody messed. Well, you couldn't mess with either one of us. I mean, I remember one time a guy was calling me a snitch. So, which is not true. You could go look at all the paperwork about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I walked into his room, closed the door behind me, said, "I hear you called me a snitch." "Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, no, no. I didn't say that. I didn't mean that." I mean, I was a very testosterone-filled, hard-hitting marijuana smuggler, kingpin, and she was pure military.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
All right. So here's the true story about Svetlana Ogorunnikov and who she really was. To start with, this is one of the books about her. It's called Sleeping with the FBI. This was written by Russell Warren Howe. All right. So when Svetlana was first arrested, she was a Russian spy. She goes, "What am I going to do? I'm facing life in prison, 2 life in prisons, and the death penalty." So her and Richard Miller, through their attorneys, decided to say you were lovers. Okay, say you're a boyfriend and girlfriend, and that he was sleeping with you. So she says, "Well, I'd rather be a whore than a spy and get the death penalty." So the whole story about her sleeping with Richard Miller is a complete fabrication.
What? What?
Yeah.
What do you
Believe me,
mean?
Todd, I slept with her. She didn't know nothing about sex. Zero, zippo, nothing. And she used to get
Yeah, but he
50.
was kind of a overweight, schlubby, sorta nerdy guy that probably wasn't getting laid anyway.
Yeah, well, she wouldn't sleep with him. The concept of a Russian spy sleeping with an American is absolutely wrong. It's a fairy tale James Bond thing. Here's why. Every time she flew back to Russia, right? They gave her lie detector tests, and the thing is, she wasn't even allowed to kiss anyone on the lips because
Wow.
if she fell in love with an American, because that's women tend to do that when they're sleeping with you, right? And vice versa, then she would betray her own country and start working
Mm.
for the Americans because she's in love with an American. That was a big danger, so they're trained not to sleep with them. I mean, I imagine there's prostitutes and stuff that they hire, but not a seasoned, uh, GRU
Lieutenant
officer.
colonel, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Sure.
and if she did sleep with anyone, they would know because every time she'd fly back. Alright, so that's to
So
start with.
so she was so what was the attraction then? So how did she even link
He had
up with Richard
secrets.
Miller? I
He
know
had
he had
that
the secrets, but how does she meet a Richard Miller if she's looking for, defectors?
So she had to recruit a series of FBI agents, and Richard was actually the last one. She was winding down her career as a Russian spy, and she just had to do one last guy. And that's was Richard Miller because she was a compulsive worker. She was a workaholic. Anyways, so who is she? She's Yuri Andropov's daughter.
Yeah, I tell that story a lot because I knew that, and everyone looks at me like, "What?"
All right, now I'm gonna tell you the story, and
So
I
so Yuri and
tricked.
Andropov, who's he for those people who don't know?
Yuri Andropov was the premier of the Soviet Union, like the president of the country. They call him a premier. And for about 18 months, he was before Gorbachev. Yuri Andropov and Lana's father and Lana's mother, Nina, were partisans fighting in World War II, and they were fighting behind enemy lines. And Yuri found out that Nina was pregnant with Lana. And so he sent her back behind the lines, behind enemy lines, back into Russian proper, and said, listen, at the end of the war, we'll meet at the square on ABC Town. I forget the name of the town. All right. And we'll meet on a Saturday. All right. So just go there every Saturday until we find each other. So that was their plan. So Nina goes back and she has Svetlana, and the war ends. And Lana remembers going to this square. Every Saturday, her mom would take her every other Saturday or every third Saturday or once a month. And the square was demolished. The whole town was demolished. So there really was no square there anymore. Um, but she went there anyways. And it was like their monthly journey.
Yeah, it was like go meet the fate, right? Go meet the
Yeah,
rest of your life, right?
yeah, and so, meanwhile, she decides that, Yuri was killed in the war, Yuri decides that she was killed in the war, and Yuri remarries, and Nina remarries, alright, and so Lana has a stepbrother, okay, and another or I guess I'm not sure. Oh, yeah, Yuri had children, Nina didn't. So Svetlana has now, unknown to her, stepbrothers. Meanwhile, they actually recruit her into the KGB, all right, as a little girl because she was very bossy and very assertive. Maybe it's genetic.
So
Her
not even
Nina
knowing who her father is.
not even having a clue. All right.
Wow,
Now
well, that's
again,
ironic.
this is a story that I've gleaned over a 40-year period. I gleaned it all in prison. She told me the whole story in prison. And then afterwards, and I would always try and trick her, and see if the story would change. It never changed.
Yeah,
It was always the
yeah.
same. The truth is the truth.
She's a
All right.
trained spy,
Yeah. But,
right? So she knows her
it's,
story, right?
yeah, yeah, she knows it. But also, this is, she's telling her lover.
I get
And
it. I know. I'm kidding.
so, anyways, so her mom, Nina, becomes a judge. She's a judge because she's very, I guess, educated and assertive. And Yuri works for head of, and he actually becomes the head of the FBI, the KGB. So he's now the head of the KGB. Lana's like this up and coming superstar in the KGB. In the beginning, it was the KGB, not the GRU. That's military intelligence. That's outside of Russia. So she started off with the KGB. When they recruited her from her little town that she was living with, they actually had a funeral that she died and was buried. okay, and then they took her away to KGB school. All right, that's, I guess, the normal thing. We scour our children and kids for super athletes, football stars, basketball stars. They scour their children for who's gonna be the best spy. So when
Yeah,
they
like
find
Jason Bourne, right?
Yeah,
So that's how Jason Bourne was created, right?
so they did a fake funeral for her. So whatever her real name was, um, she died, was buried, and she goes off to KGB school, becomes this
Wow.
rising star. She goes on all kinds of Mission Impossible. Meanwhile, Yuri's always looking for her. He's always looking for Nina. Even he assumed that she died in the war. He still is looking. He has all his top people scouring the country looking for Nina.
Right,
All right.
right.
And so one day, some general finds out who Nina is. And
How
so
could they possibly find out?
he figured it out. He found Nina, I guess, and figured out that Lana's the daughter. So rather than go rushing to Yuri and say, "Hey, I found your daughter," he marries her. And apparently the guy was a real asshole. And this is who Matthew Wolfson, his real father is this general, this asshole general. And that's definitely genetic because Matthew is clearly an asshole who ripped his own mother off for like $3 million in machines, energy wellness machines from our business. But that's a different story. He finds her. And so one day he says, she gets word. Now she's married to this general. And she gets word that the boss wants to see her. Now she's telling me this story, right? And so I go, "Were you nervous?" She goes, "Yeah, I was nervous." So she goes in and talks to Yuri and Dropov at the KGB, and he starts asking her all these questions. "Where were you born? Who's your mother? What did this happen? Did this happen?"
Sure.
And he goes, "I've heard about you. You're like this, rising star in the KGB." And she goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, do you know this person?" And he pulls out a picture of her mother. And she goes, "Why do you have a picture of my mother?" And that's when she found out that he was her father.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. So he takes
And
her
d
home. She takes her home, and she goes, "Mom, somebody's here." Knocks on the door. "Mom, somebody's here to see you." "Tell them to go away. I'm in my bathrobe. I don't want to see anybody." I go, now I know where she gets that. Because she was very, very not assertive, darn right aggressive. All right.
Right. No, she was
And
definitely aggressive. Yeah.
yeah. So she says, "Mom, no, you really need to see this person." She goes, "Who is it?" His "Mother, please come to the door." So she comes to the door and they meet and they see each other. So you can imagine the emotion. And they
Sure.
ask her to go away. They need to talk. And she goes, "I think they had sex." I go, "Lana, they definitely had sex." I, but getting back to talking about sex and Lana knowing how to, I promise you, she didn't know anything about sex, didn't know the first thing, how to teach her everything. She used to complain that when they had courses on sex in KGB school, they would say, "Ma'am, you need to leave the room," because it was inappropriate to discuss that stuff that they were teaching the guys
Oh, that's
with a
funny.
girl in there. And she goes,
Right.
"And I don't know anything, and it's embarrassing." "That's okay. I'll teach you everything." So we did. In prison, we got to
Good
make
thing you
love.
had all that experience of being a free love hippie, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's talk about the free love hippie. All right. So now we're together, the king and spy. We're a couple and we're sneaking around. We paid William Barrett, the guard. I said, William, and he'll be on the podcast. He's agreed to be on. I go, "I'll pay you $50,000 if you let us have sex." He goes, "Okay." And so our hotel was the room behind the movie theater. Like in the movie theater, you have curtains. Behind it, there's another room. It was a chapel, and you have like a stage. So you open the curtain, and then there was a curtain, regular curtain, and then there was a accordion curtains that were sort of semi rigid, and then the movie screen would come down. So when you want to do plays, you open the two curtains and there was a play there. We do plays or talk and stuff.
Did you do
And the
much drama in prison? Were there many plays going on that you participated in?
No, but there was a lot of plays. I just wasn't into putting on plays, Easter plays, this play, that play. It was like no one would believe that this kind of stuff went on in prison.
Right. Sounds like a summer camp. Right.
So one of my jobs was to clean up the room between movies. After the movies, you go to straighten all the chairs out. Then the next wave of moviegoers would come in, and so in the first wave of movie theater, while I was in there and Barrett was in there, I would pull the accordion doors open, and she'd slip in, and then I'd go in, and then the screen was already down. And for 90 minutes during the whole movie, we're in there making love the whole time. And you're in the top physical peak of your life, in prison because you're working out all the time. And like I said, we used to walk 10 miles every night. And that wasn't my workout. That was just walking with her for 2.5 hours, 15 minutes a mile. All right. So Barrett was promised $50,000. Well, I didn't have the $50,000. It was not easy to get into him. However, jumping ahead, when I started the first publicly traded company in America in the pot stocks, Medical Marijuana Inc., I tracked him down, gave him $50,000 for the stock, probably more, and he cashed it out and got his $50,000. So
That's such an awesome story. I love hearing that.
Your
you really
word
came through
is
and
your
paid off your debt. Yeah.
Yeah, your word is your bond. If I say it, I have to do it. So again, the same with the lighters with Joe Chagra. All right. So Barrett got his $50,000. I remember he called me one day. He goes, Bruce, I used that money to put my daughter through college, and I bought her a car, and she's absolutely not grateful. She has no appreciation. I go, Barrett, welcome to parenting.
Yeah, exactly. There's no winning in the kid business. Hey, Bruce, we are out of time, so we have to stop right here, but you'll be back next week and we'll tell more Svetlana stories right here on Becoming the King of Pot.